we want to make a small housekeeping announcement. We are going to be changing our schedule again. I know that we've done this a couple times in the past, but with things as they are with our health and with our jobs, we are going to be changing to a schedule of posting every other week rather than one time a week. Mm-hmm. So this episode is going to be the last episode of sequential weeks. The next episode after today is going to be posted 2 weeks from today. And that
still on Monday.
Right, still on Mondays. But that change is going to be in effect for the foreseeable future until our schedules are a little bit less hectic and until we're able to better manage a weekly upload schedule.
Right.
So we wanted to let you all know.
We love you.
Thanks for being here.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Briefcase Crimes contains graphic depictions of violent acts, bad jokes, and loud dog noises. It's not intended for all audiences, and listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, listeners, to Briefcase Crimes.
I'm Hannah, and I'm full of terrifying facts about horrific events.
I'm Liz, and I'm full of morbid curiosity. Hannah.
Elizabeth.
I almost forgot to start that.
You did it last time, too.
Did I?
Yeah, with the girls.
Oh, that's right. Well, that was all different, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So today is our... it'll be our April monthly mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I am going to be telling our monthly mystery as usual.
I'm excited.
I am too. So this case, now our episode might be shorter than usual, but this story has a lot of different facets to it. So this case is kind of near and dear to my heart. And so I was doing some research on it recently, and I realized that there's a lot more to it than I thought. I had always wanted to use this story as a monthly mystery, but I kind of thought that I would have to make it like part of an episode with lots of little stories.
Yeah, like it wouldn't have enough content to be a whole episode.
Right, because it is a cold case, so like they never figured out what happened. But once I was researching it, I realized that yes, while this particular case doesn't have a whole lot to it, there's a lot around it. There's a lot of other things that were happening at the same sort of time.
I'm excited to dig into it.
Oh, me too. Let me, so, because I discovered all of these different things happening around it at the same time, we're not going to be starting with that case that is near and dear to me.
Okay.
So, go ahead to your first slide.
You know I love going out of chronological order.
It's actually going to be in chronological order.
Oh.
Like
lame.
we're going to go in calendar order.
Okay.
Sorry about it.
I'll live.
So, this is the Martinique Apartments in Pittsburgh. So,
ooh.
Yes. On
Hometown
the left,
case.
Yes. On the left, we have a picture of the apartments from 1958 in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
This was a photo that was included in a newspaper clipping. And then on the right, we have the same exact building today.
Oh, apartments for rent.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So, This is the Martinique. 3/4 of everything we're going to be talking about today happened in or around the Martinique.
Okay.
Depending on how big of a radius you're drawing, they all happened around the Martinique.
Okay.
But this is kind of the hub. So, if you look at the little caption underneath the old picture, you'll see apartment marked by circle where woman was slain.
I see that.
That woman was Mrs. Mary Regan. She was murdered in her apartment in 1958 on July 9th. She had been seen last by her husband at about 10:30 in the morning. He kind of, they had their issues. I kind of got the feeling. Okay, so he was unemployed. And they had been getting into arguments. He had claimed that the night previous to her murder, she came home at 4 a.m. drunk, and they got into a fight. And then the morning of the 9th, he left the house at about 10:30. So that was the last time that anyone saw her alive that we know of. So he went out 10:30, went to get his unemployment check, went shopping in the north side of Pittsburgh, and then went to a beer parlor to watch the All-Star baseball game on TV.
To spend his unemployment check.
Yeah, pretty much. He came home at 5:30, unlocked his apartment door. So he says that it was locked. He came in and found his wife dead.
Yikes.
She was in the bathtub. She had been strangled to death. The tub was 3/4 full of water, and she was clothed in a terry cloth bathrobe.
Okay.
Of course, her husband, John, I didn't mention his name. His name is John. He claims he has nothing to do with it. He maintained that claim always.
I might be skipping ahead.
No,
did
it's
anyone
okay.
see him at the bar and stuff? Like, did he have people that saw him at this place that was his alibi?
I assume so, because the police never had any evidence to convict him or anything. But I didn't see anything that was that black and white about it. Okay. But I would assume that, he went to unemployment, so the people at the unemployment office would have seen him, and then the people at the bar would have seen him.
Yeah, but I mean, 10:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. is a big window of time.
So based on the coroner report, they placed her time of death between, the official, range would have been between 9:45 and 1:45 p.m. So, the range of when she could have been killed ranged from before he left to 1:45, which at that point he was still out. And that's just, based on forensics. So, now, go ahead. What you got?
Well, I know that the All-Star baseball game lasted 2 hours and 13 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You said this happened on the 9th or the 8th?
This happened on the 9th.
Well, the baseball game was on the 8th.
Hold on. Let me make sure. Let me double check. I could have just mistyped it on my notes.
I assumed it was on the 8th because the newspaper clipping is from the 9th.
That's very possible. I could have just fat thumbed my
That's okay.
thing.
So let's say the baseball game probably started at 1:05. Mm-hmm. It's a usual baseball time start game. So let's say he watched the entire game at the
Right.
bar. He's not done with that until 3:30.
Right. And like,
But then what did he do after that? Just hung out, probably.
well, yeah, he probably either hung out, and like, I'm trying to think, especially in the 50s, like, it's fairly uncommon in Pittsburgh for you to have your own vehicle. So he also would have been relying on either buses or trolleys to get him
Yeah.
to and from. So the way I'm looking at it is like, he left at 10:30. He had to catch public transportation to go downtown, probably, to get his check. And then from downtown, he then would have gone to the north side, which isn't, like, none of this is far, but it's far
No.
enough that he probably wouldn't be walking. So
yeah, exactly.
we have to, like, factor in the amount of time to wait on public transportation, and then the fact that public transportation is a lot slower than, like,
Yeah.
just driving. So I don't think that it would be crazy to say that it could take him an hour to get home from the north
Yeah.
side.
And, like, let's say the game finished at 3:30. He's not necessarily going to just, like, pack up and leave.
No, exactly.
Like, he might hang out, have a few drinks, talk to some friends, catch the bus or the trolley home.
Right, exactly.
What neighborhood is the Martinique apartments in?
So it is technically in Shadyside. It
Okay.
is right on the border between Bloomfield and Oakland.
Oh.
Yeah, so I do have a
Okay.
map. I have a map I'm going to show you a little bit later.
Okay.
And
I'm just situating it in my own brain.
Yeah, and by the way, for our listeners, this map is not going to be included in the brief because it is so close to where my family still lives. Some of my landmarks are personal locations, so we are not going to be including a brief, but you can easily, like with the map that I've made, but you could easily just Google, and if you want to see where these locations are, like, it's out there. So
It's more for my theater of the mind.
right, in order to kind of illustrate how close these things are, my landmarks are like personal locations.
Yeah, like
So.
when you say Bloomfield, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I know that. Like,
Yeah.
I know Bloomfield. Yeah, I know Oakland.
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's continue with this, because of course you mentioned, corroboration and alibi and what have you. So I'm not sure exactly. Let me look. Did I date the article here? Some of the articles, like, I listed the date in which they were, like, the newspaper is from. Let me see. Did I?
Am I allowed
Okay.
to go to that next slide?
Yeah, you can. Go
Okay.
ahead. So this article was from July 11 from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So a couple of days later,
Okay.
let me get my tab back up here. So they published in the newspaper on July 11th that there was a delivery man that had been inside their apartment at the Martinique around the time that she was strangled.
Okay.
And this is what that article says, because most of the information I got is from, old newspaper clippings. He said that he had a package to deliver and that he found the apartment door unlocked. So he entered the apartment in the early afternoon. No one replied to his knock, so he just walked in. He did claim that he saw somebody lying on the bed, so he just set the package down inside the door and left. Now, this is, like, very curious to me because the husband said that he unlocked the door.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the delivery man didn't, at least in this article, did not specify oh, I locked it behind me or anything like that. I don't know if those automatic locks were even a thing in the 50s. Probably.
They wouldn't have been if the door was unlocked when he got there.
Well, I'm thinking like, you know how not on a deadbolt, but on the knob, you can like twist the little lock and pull it shut behind you.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be the only way that he could have possibly locked it behind him. So either she was still alive or somebody was still alive in the apartment and locked the door.
I took it to mean he saw the murderer laying on the bed.
It's possible. He doesn't know who he saw, though, as far as this article says. So, let me read here. It's also curious because they also say that she frequented the bars too. I guess they weren't frequenting the same bars. And they weren't going together. And this article does say that she was seen in the company of other men, but there's no really solid evidence. You know, maybe she was having an affair, maybe not. There's really not a whole lot. In this article, though, they do claim that the door was easily, like, the lock was easily picked with a knife. Like,
yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
And it does say that there was no indication of a recent forced entry, so it's very possible that she could have known her assailant.
Right, and he might have had a key.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it was a long-standing affair, you know, maybe he had a spare key. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
So this happened in the Martinique apartments. Like I said, if you go back to that first slide, they have that window circled. That's the apartment that it occurred in. Whoops. And that happened in 1958. We're going to fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
To 1959 in November.
Okay.
Let me double check my dates now, because now I'm like nervous about all of my dates. Okay, so this article on the next slide, if you go to our next slide.
Okay.
This newspaper clipping was published on November 26th. However, Marcella Krulz went missing on November 19th. So this was posted about a week after her disappearance. Mm-hmm. Marcella is the one pictured on the right here. She is the secretary gone missing. She's
diabetic. She needs insulin.
Yes. So she also lived in the Martinique apartments. She was
interesting.
She was last seen on the 19th in the evening having dinner in the apartment restaurant.
Oh, bougie.
It's so funny that it sounds bougie, but like the apartment looks gross. Like
It does.
I can't imagine like where this restaurant was.
Let me look at the old picture of it.
So here's the thing.
It's there where the pizza shop is.
Not true.
Now.
It's not. No, those businesses were always there, but they were not like technically part of the apartments. I have a couple other images later that'll kind of show you a little bit better, like the geographic, like layout of it.
It doesn't still have a restaurant, does it?
Not that I am aware of, no.
Do I need to make some phone calls?
If you want, listen, we're going to talk about that too. Don't worry.
Okay.
So she was last seen having dinner in the restaurant in the evening, and just nobody saw her again after that. So they, I guess, assumed that she went back to her room. They're like little studio apartments, so they're not very big. They're like one bedroom.
Can you imagine being a married couple living in a studio apartment? Like, I know people do it. I don't know how.
I don't know either. I couldn't.
I can't imagine being one person living in a studio apartment.
Mm-hmm. So, as this article says, she went missing, but all of her insulin was left in her apartment.
Which she wouldn't do.
No.
Since she needs it to live.
Exactly. So, some people were saying, oh, well, she was like 30 years old. Maybe she just wanted a fresh start. Maybe she just left on her own. But you wouldn't leave your insulin behind.
No. And it says that she spent the weekends at her mom's home.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like she would
just up and leave
and not tell her mom.
Right. Like, she had absolutely no contact with her family after that. So, clearly, something is up.
Was she having dinner by herself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just her routine. Like, sometimes she would eat in the restaurant,
Okay.
She got home from work and probably, like, changed her clothes or whatever from work. As the article says, she is a secretary. She was single, as far as I can tell from the articles that I saw. So... yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know what the United Fund is. It's probably not super relevant.
No, but that's where she worked.
Yeah, but that is where she worked. But yeah, she just went missing like that. Her brother, was pretty vocal about, how she wouldn't have just up and left like that. But there was no evidence. There was nothing. So, whether that be due to poor police work, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was nothing. Again, this was November 19 of 1959 that she went missing. So it was less than a year.
Yeah.
Wait, no. Slightly more than a year. Yeah, sorry, about 18 months after Mary Regan was killed.
Yeah.
So, suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, potentially a coincidence, but probably not.
Right. Don't worry. It gets deeper.
Was John Regan still living at the Martinique? Do we know?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not sure. And you know how, I mean...
It's hard to find information like that.
Yeah, it really is. But we're going to move forward again in time. So we're going to move from November of 1959 to June of 1962.
Okay.
This is where this case is near and dear to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead to your next slide. This little girl...
I've seen this little girl before.
I know you have. This little girl is Mary Ann Verdecchia. She attended the same school that myself, my brother, my mom, my dad, my grandma all attended in Bloomfield. So June 7th of 1962 was the last day of school, according to my mom. So some of this, some of the information that I have is things that I researched going into this. So some of it I can cite. Other information is from my mom, because my mom...
But I was going to say, your mom researched this a lot too, though.
Yes, I have vivid memories of being a child and my mom taking us to the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh so she could go through all of the microfiche and find old newspaper clippings about this case. My mom was just interested because it was local. Nobody ever found out what happened to her. Spoiler alert. Nobody found out what happened to her. This is still a cold case.
Yeah.
And it was strange to Mom. Like, how could this happen in a town where everybody knows each other? Like, my mom couldn't take two steps, you know what I mean, without somebody that her parents knew seeing her. And like me growing up there was the same thing. I couldn't get away with anything because everybody knew each other.
I would say, we always say that Pittsburgh is like the biggest small town. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like every time I'm in Pittsburgh, we run into somebody. Yeah. That we know. And it's
pretty
like,
much.
It's a city, but like, the neighborhoods are small, and like, you know, there's not that many like areas to be in certain spots. So
exactly. So little Marianne is 10 years old. It is, according to what my mom's research was, it was the last day of school and it was heat wave. So it was so hot, and of course these old school buildings, they don't have AC or anything like that. I went to the same school. I can attest. There was no AC when I went there either. So it was so hot that they did a half day because at this time there was no like proper cafeteria at the school. So you either packed a lunch or you walked home for lunch. Yeah. There was no cafeteria school, and it didn't, or school cafeteria, and it didn't matter how old you were because everybody lived in the neighborhood. So it was not uncommon for kids to walk home on their own for lunch and come back for the last half of the day. Yeah. So on this occasion, though, it was so hot that they just dismissed school at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. So she went home. She changed into her play clothes. You can see the little tiny newspaper clipping here specified what she was wearing. So she came home. She changed out of her school uniform because this is a Catholic school, so school uniform. Mm-hmm. She changed into red shorts, a white blouse, and white tennis shoes. I know tennis shoes is kind of a regional thing. Sneakers, whatever you want to call them, running shoes, tennis shoes. Yeah. And she started going around the neighborhood to her friends' houses to see, you know, if somebody could come out and play.
Yeah, summer had just come early.
Right. Also of note, she lived with her aunt and her cousins because her parents had split up. Her father was a drunk, and her mother moved to Chicago to be with her boyfriend. And she stayed behind in Pittsburgh and lived with her aunt. And her aunt loved her dearly. Like, it wasn't like a, you know, Cinderella awful stepmom type of thing.
You've been saddled with this kid.
Right. No, her aunt loved her very much. So she... Go ahead.
This what was her last name again?
Verdecchia. Let me type that in here so you can see how it's spelled.
I was gonna say, are they Italian Catholic?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I thought so.
Well, if you're not familiar, Bloomfield, which is where this school was, is known as Pittsburgh's Little Italy. Yeah. Because it's where most of the Italian immigrants settled.
I thought so based on her looks. And also, again, because it was Bloomfield, she was Catholic, all of that. It just fit.
Yeah. Pittsburgh in general is really interesting because there's all these little neighborhoods, and each neighborhood kind of has its own, like, ethnicity. Mm-hmm. Which is, it's not always the case, but it's kind of cool. So you've got Bloomfield, which is Little Italy. You've got Squirrel Hill, which is where a lot of the Jewish people settled. Mm-hmm. You've got Polish Hill, which is aptly named. You know, like, there's all these little pockets of people who settled in the same place because they were from the same place. Yeah. So Bloomfield was your Little Italy. Where was I?
She lived with her aunt. Her aunt loved her dearly.
Yes. So she got out of school, she changed her clothes, and she started going around the neighborhood to her friends' houses, her classmates' houses, knocking on doors, seeing if anybody could come out and play. I'm not sure how many like doors she knocked on, but nobody that she tried to could come out. Okay. So she walked from Bloomfield to the Martinique apartments.
Oh.
Now, the reason that she went there was because there was a woman who lived in the apartments who had been a neighbor to her in the past. Okay. And so she moved into this apartment. Her name was Miss Emery. I'm not sure I don't remember her first name, but Miss Emery.
Okay.
And she was like our age.
Oh.
Okay. But she moved into these apartments again, single woman living alone in these apartments. And they like Mary was her little friend, you know?
Yeah.
So she
and
went.
you said the Martinique apartments were on the border of
Bloomfield
and Oakland. So
yeah.
It's not that big of a walk either.
No.
It's not like she was going like to Squirrel Hill.
Right. And so for your context, that Kyle and I on occasions would walk home from high school.
Yeah.
It's not that far. It's like maybe half of that.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a good 30-minute walk.
Yeah.
But it's not totally unreasonable.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's not like she was like, I'm going to go see my friend in Highland Park.
No.
Like, she's not, like, traversing the city to get to this woman.
No. And I'll show you the map. It's on the next slide, but we're not ready for that yet.
Okay.
So, she goes to visit Miss Emery, and Miss Emery would regularly kind of send her on little errands, I think mainly to kind of keep her busy. She liked to be helpful, you know? Yeah. So Miss Emery sent her to the grocery store, supposedly to buy some cat food. Okay. And so...
Single woman with cats.
Of course. You know.
Cool.
So Mary goes. She goes to the grocery store. She returns back to the apartment, and she finds out that Miss Emery is not home.
Oh.
So the janitor, William Dozier, not entirely sure how to say that. The janitor saw her at about 2 p.m. and he is the one who told her, no, Miss Emery left. I just saw her crossing the street.
Okay.
And he was the last person to see her ever.
Pretty messed up, though, of Miss Emery to be like, hey, go get cat food and then just peace out.
I cannot imagine how much guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but also, like, why would you leave?
I don't know. There was no clear information about why it was that she left. At least not that I could find. Oh, her first name's Jane. Here it is. She was 23.
Jane Emery. Okay. She's younger than us then.
Yeah. So, Mr. William Dozier saw her a little bit after 2. Her official time that she was last seen was 2:45 p.m. on the 7th of June.
Okay.
She didn't come home for dinner. And so her aunt and her family, of course, was like, that's not normal. You know, she always comes home for dinner. Like, Italian home, you are home for dinner.
Yeah.
And so the aunt and some of the other family members started canvassing the neighborhood on their own to try and find her. Mm-hmm. They did not find her. At about 10 p.m., they called the police. Yeah. So, she was only known missing starting at about 6 for dinner time.
But at this point, it's been 2:45 to 10 p.m. That's a long time.
Yep. And that was just the end of it. They never found her. They never really found... Well, I'm sure there's evidence, but nothing was ever released to the public, I should say. Yeah. And again, since this case has never been solved, a lot of that stuff is still sealed. Yeah. So the police officer who worked on this case, her name is Teresa Rocco. Mm-hmm. Also another very Italian name. Yeah. She was the first female, what's her title? hold on.
Wasn't she like a police commissioner or something?
I think it was police chief.
Okay.
Let me Google it really quick. She wrote a book, which I own, but I have not read yet.
I think you have recommended it.
I think I did. She was the first female assistant police chief.
Okay.
Which is honestly really, really good for it being 59 for 60.
62.
62. Yeah, she was employed like before that, but
yeah.
But yeah, so Teresa Rocco, who was also nicknamed The Rock.
Okay.
She led this investigation into Marianne Verdecchia's disappearance.
Okay.
Skipping forward quite a bit, and a lot of this is not fully substantiated. I want to make that very, very clear. This has a heavy dose of allegedly on top of it.
Okay.
No one was ever tried for her disappearance. Allegedly, and I tried to talk to Mom about this because she's the one I heard it from, and I was like, cool, but like where?
Yeah.
And we couldn't find it. We tried really, really hard. But allegedly, there was a man who passed away in, I think it was, we narrowed it down to like 2007 to 2012, like somewhere in there. And allegedly, on his deathbed, he said, so-and-so did it. This person did it.
Okay.
Now, this person had already passed away.
That stinks.
Yeah. So, it was kind of a dead end. And I was like, well, he's already dead. Just say who it was. But Mom's like, no, that's not how it works. And I'm like, I know. But also, there is a heavy implication that Teresa believes she knows who did it.
Oh, okay.
But of course, there's just not rock solid evidence in order to arrest anybody or try anybody. Yeah. I want so badly to be like, hey, Teresa, please tell me.
Yeah. So we don't know who the name.
No.
Okay.
Nope. I have no idea who it is. Teresa's still alive. She says that she thinks about Marianne every single day.
Yeah.
It was always a case that was really, really close to her as well.
Well, yeah, because she's a child. Like, I think anytime that it's a case that involves a child, especially a child just, like, poof, disappearing into thin air, it seems.
Yeah, a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah, like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
Like...
Yeah, and, you know, their first thought was her mom took her. So, like, they were trying to get a hold of her mother, who was in Chicago. And for, like, the first week of the investigation, they were all pretty sure, like, she's with her mom. She's in Chicago. And once they found her mom, that wasn't true.
Yeah.
And her mom was very upset also. Like,
But, like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's a very complicated thing. Years later, her mother actually had another kid. So Marianne has a half-brother. However, he was born after Marianne had already disappeared. So he never knew her. But he became a police officer because he promised his mother that he would become a police officer to try and help find his sister. Because her mother was torn up about it her entire life.
I'm sure.
It wasn't one of those cases of like the mom moves and just like doesn't care anymore. Like, no.
Yeah.
She was upset for the rest of her life about it. And he eventually got in contact with Teresa Rocco and they formed a relationship, which is really kind of sweet.
Yeah.
But they never found anything. Never enough to convict anyhow.
That's frustrating.
Yep. Later on that month, in June, the same month that she disappeared, They did find a piece of her jewelry next to the Highland Park Zoo, which is very close to Britt and Suze's last apartment that they lived in. One of the neighborhood kids said that she always wore a ring on each hand, and he had seen her on that day before she went missing, and he noticed that she only had one of her rings on. So they found a ring, but again, it was nothing concrete enough to do anything about. Or they found a piece of jewelry. They didn't actually specify that it was a ring, but I'm assuming it's a ring because of this kid's, statement. Yeah.
That's so funny to me because, like, I'm not a big jewelry wearer anyway.
Yeah.
Even as, like, at, like, 28. I just can't imagine being a 10-year-old and always wearing a ring on both hands.
It's an Italian thing, baby.
It has to be, yeah.
I've always worn jewelry. Like,
people always get me jewelry, like necklaces and stuff, and I'm always just like, cool. I'll probably never wear this.
Yeah, I always wore jewelry. Always. It is a very Italian thing. I couldn't tell you why. It just is.
I had to get used to wearing my engagement ring.
Yeah.
Just that it was like, now if I don't have it on, like if I take it off to shower or wash my hands or whatever, I feel weird without it. So, I mean, it has changed.
On July 28th, so this is a little over a month after Marianne went missing.
Okay.
The police apprehended one James Bebout, B-E-B-O-U-T, Bebout.
Okay, Bebout.
Bebout. He's apprehended after witnesses saw him attempting to lure 3 girls into his car in Bloomfield.
Ew.
So, neighbors are the MVP, right?
Yes, we love neighbors.
A neighbor saw this happen and called the police, and the police apprehended him, and the girls were not in his car when they apprehended him, but they apprehend him and they question him about Marianne, and he denies any involvement, and like they have nothing else. They have nothing to hold him on, so they let him go. So that is pretty much where the investigation ended in 1962. Yeah. They interrogated over the years over 300 people, or questioned, I should say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
This was a really big deal.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Yeah, it's crazy though, because you had another woman die, another woman go missing, and none of them got as much press as Marianne did.
Well, she was a child.
I know, but still.
Adults die and go missing every day in Pittsburgh.
True.
It is weird though that they didn't hone in on the Martinique apartments angle.
Yeah.
You also have to remember that the press, not to sound like a boomer, but the news cycle and the press was different in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. Now, we're going to fast forward a little bit again.
Okay.
We're in 1963 in December. Mm-hmm. Go to your next slide.
Okay.
Your headline, groom robbed, killed former workhouse pal.
Is this the Blahnox workhouse?
Yes, it is the Blahnox workhouse.
Oh, it's all coming back.
I know. It's like a full circle. So,
I think this is our first Pittsburgh case since Stanley Haas.
I think so. Yeah.
It all comes back to the Blahnox workhouse.
Yeah. If you look at the pictures on the right-hand clipping, the on the left is the victim. On the right is our perpetrator, Robert Lee Bricker.
Okay.
Robert Lee Bricker lived in the Martinique apartments in 1963.
Okay, so like 1 year after Marianne went missing.
Yeah. So we don't have a solid date on when he moved in.
Yeah.
But he at least lived there in the same 5 years that all of this stuff was going down. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. As the article states, on December 26th of 1963, Robert got married at 4:30 p.m. and then a few hours later left his bride that day to go and meet his old friend Wilford Jenkins. He then robbed and murdered him.
Listen. That is the traditional wedding timeline.
Obviously.
That's what happens. You get married at 4:30, and then the groom leaves to do the traditional robbery/murder.
Yeah. He at this point was like basically out on probation. He had been serving 2.5 to 5 at the workhouse for armed robbery.
Oh, cool.
And they were in the workhouse at the same time in 1961. So
okay,
that's like the timeline of how he knew Mr. Jenkins. Basically what I could find just said that he wanted money for his honeymoon trip and he knew that Wilford would have it.
Wonder where they were going.
I don't know. I don't think they went anywhere at the end of the day.
No, but I wonder where they were planning on going.
Yeah, they found him real fast after this. I feel bad for his wife.
That's what I was thinking. But like, she had to have known that he like wasn't great.
I would assume so. Let me see.
Like,
this
I did time for armed robbery and now I'm out on parole. Like,
yeah, this article was from January 9th of 1964. So this is less than a month later. Like, they already had him.
Yeah.
Like, less than 2 weeks later, they had already caught him.
I had to do a quick a quick Google to see when our boy Stan was in was in the thing. He wasn't there until 1969, so
boo. Hold on,
I know.
Let me I have his obituary. Robert Bricker.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away in 2000 of colon cancer.
Okay.
His nickname was the Codfish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. But he was 59 at the time that he died in 2000. He was sentenced to life for a murder that he committed in 1978.
Oh, geez.
I couldn't find a whole lot that kind of supported this, but I found that he was referred to as Pittsburgh's most notorious contracted killer.
Oh.
So I don't know exactly how many people he killed.
Okay.
So in 63, when he killed Wilford at this point was a car dealer. He called Wilford and asked to borrow money. And then when they met, he stole $500 from him and shot him twice in the chest. Kicked him out of the car, ran him over, and dragged him screaming under the car for 300 yards.
I just feel like there's better, like, easier ways to do this.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty rough.
Oh, here we go. The obituary actually states that government informants testified that his nickname of Codfish was based on his reputation as a cold-blooded killer.
Oh.
He
Cool.
was sentenced to life in prison for killing Jenkins. He pled guilty to that, but he ended up serving less than 10 years.
I was going to say, then he got out and killed someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where they put him? Did they put him back in the workhouse?
Let me see here. Let me read.
Because that would put him back in with our good friend.
Right.
Our good friend Stan.
The State Correctional Institution of Pittsburgh.
Boo.
Yeah. So in 1974, they commuted his sentence from a life sentence to life parole, because in the State Correctional Institution, he bettered himself by earning a high school diploma and an associate college degree.
Yeah, but also, like, he then got out and killed a bunch of people, so...
Yeah.
Like...
Oh my God. I didn't read this whole obituary. It is so long. So then it says, beginning in April 1978, Mr. Bricker was allegedly involved in 5 murders in 18 months.
Can you imagine you die and they put all this in your obituary?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
you guys have got to read this. You've got to read this. So the first was the killing of Melvin Pike, a 63-year-old Uniontown racketeer and mob enforcer who was muscling in on the gambling empire of Paul No Legs Hankish.
What? Bring back these old-timey weird names.
Authorities identified Mr. Bricker as the key suspect several times, and in 1990, federal witness Gerald Snooky Walls testified at Hankish's 1990 racketeering trial that Mr. Bricker was paid to kill Pike, but Mr. Bricker was never charged. He was shot in the face in retaliation.
Like,
hold on.
Clearly,
these nicknames.
No. So here's the thing, though. You were like, I didn't see a lot of stuff that, like,
and I just didn't read the obituary. I should have just read the
his obituary called him out.
Yeah, it did. There's so much more. So he killed Melvin Pike. He got shot in the face in retaliation.
Wait. Bricker got shot in the face?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
And just lived?
Yeah. Pike was an associate of organized crime member Gabriel Kelly Manarino of New Kensington, which if Susan is listening, her family dealt with the mob in New Kensington.
Listen, we need Rick.
New Kensington, for those who are not familiar, is a suburb of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Mr. Bricker was shot in December 1980. Prostacimo, that's his last name, testified, I shot him with a clean shot in the face and he didn't die. End quote.
That's the complete disappointment.
That's just the first case. The second case was a series of killing, or the second case in the series of killings was in 1978. Norman McGregor of West Mifflin, which is where Kennywood is, was gunned down at his home in a dispute over a vending machine business. Bricker was convicted in 1983, and it was that murder for which he was in prison for life. So that's the murder that he was convicted to, or sentenced to life in prison for.
Okay.
Now, he was sentenced in 83, though. So in 81, there was the third case was a killing of Monessen drug dealer Gary Stretch. His nickname is Stretch. Gary Stretch DiStefano, who was gunned down outside a Market Square club. Mr. Bricker was acquitted of that one. The fourth case in 79 was the killing of a drug supplier, Philip S. Hubbard. They lured Hubbard to a Miami Beach hotel room and killed him. Bricker was indicted in 87. The status of that case could not be determined as of the printing of this obituary.
Okay.
Then in 79, Bricker allegedly participated in the killing of Dormont drug dealer Thomas Sacco, who was ambushed outside a Market Square bar. So twice he was convicted and sentenced to life. Twice the state Supreme Court overturned the convictions. In 1990, District Attorney dropped the charge so Mr. Bricker could be extradited to Miami for the Hubbard case.
Okay.
A few years ago, at Western Penn, Mr. Bricker saved the life of another convict, Thomas A. This last name, holy crap. Thomas A. Birkelbaugh.
Okay.
Was despondent about his failing health. A few days after surgery in which Birkelbaugh lost his right eye, he tried to kill himself by injecting heroin. Bricker said, "I pulled the needle out and smacked him a couple of times. He said, 'Just leave me alone. Let me die.'" So he saved Bricklebaugh's life.
Well, so if
oh my God, it gets worse.
I say, if we're keeping tally, though, got his high school diploma
and an associate's degree.
And an associate's degree, saved a man's life, but then on the other hand, killed a bunch of people.
But also
got shot in the face and didn't die. So
he also earned a movie projectionist license while in prison, so you can add that to his list.
I didn't know you had to have a license for that.
I don't know. That's just what it says. But here, it gets better. Not long after that, Birkelbaugh tunneled out of the prison with 5 other men.
Why?
He was captured a few days later.
So he saved a man who tried to escape.
Uh-huh.
After his almost heroin overdose. I also like that
he saved the man from the heroin overdose, and then he escaped after that.
The heroin overdose
guy
victim.
Yeah.
Also, why are we spending money on Narcan when clearly you can just remove the needle and smack them?
Yeah.
Like, I think that this man just solved the opioid crisis.
I think so. So that was a doozy of an obituary. It's going to be linked in the brief.
I just hope that my obituary looks half as good as that.
It's the longest obituary I've ever seen.
And the most action-packed.
Honestly.
But, like, the guy whose nickname was Stretch was, like, the least imaginative one.
Yeah, what about No Legs?
I love No Legs.
I need to look that guy up and see why he was called No Legs.
What was his name?
Paul Hankish. Hankish. And he had a gambling empire, apparently. He has a
Wait a second.
Are you okay?
He has a page on mafia.wikia.org.
Oh my God.
Paul No Legs Hankish.
Oh, he's from West Virginia.
Yeah, he was a powerful associate of the Pittsburgh crime family and West Virginia racket boss.
Mm-hmm.
He has he received the nickname No Legs after losing his legs as a result of a car bomb assassination attempt.
Oh my gosh.
The attempt was believed to have been ordered by wheeling racket boss William Big Bill Lias. This is my new favorite thing.
Mafia Wiki?
Let's just do an entire episode about crazy mafia stuff.
We totally should.
He must have had prosthetics in this picture because he has crutches, like arm crutches.
Yeah.
And he does in fact have legs in this photo, but if they were his his legs he was born with or not is up to...
Yeah, because this picture could have been taken in between the bombing and him actually having to lose them.
But that would be really disingenuous, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like, we'll just put this one up. Anyway, can you believe... Old no legs. Like, not very imaginative, but also great.
I know. I'm trying to find more pictures. Anyways, that was a wild ride. All of that just to say this murder man lived in the Martinique apartments, pretty much.
This murder man. Oh, I love it.
All right. So.
Oh, here's the picture of his car.
Oh, send it to me.
Okay.
Okay. There's more. I'm not even done with all the stuff.
But you're done with this murder man.
I'm done with the murder man.
Okay.
But there's more to the story
okay.
in large.
Okay.
Let me look at the picture of his car first, and then we'll move on. Oh my goodness. It's a miracle he only lost his legs. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, also in 1964,
wait a second before we move on.
Yeah.
Would you like to take this moment to take an ad break?
Oh, we probably should have done that before I started talking about him, but yeah, that's fine.
When you said on that note, I was like, here comes the ad, and then it did not.
That's fine.
The ad did not happen.
Let's go ahead and cleanse our palates because that was really silly and we're going to have to get serious again. So let's take a little ad break here to calm down our sillies a little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
And we have returned. We are now serious. We have flipped our serious switches.
Yes.
Back to the murder man.
Don't say that. Anyway.
I didn't start it.
Anyway. So the murder that occurred while Robert was living in the Martinique apartments happened in the same year, which was 1964. So that was the same year that another woman went missing.
Okay.
Now, this woman did not live in the Martinique apartments. Go ahead to your next slide. This woman is Mary Arcuri. She was 36 years old when she disappeared. And then this is the map that is just for you. I'm going to blow it up really quick while I talk about it.
I was going to say, I'd like it bigger, please.
Yeah. Mary Arcuri, because I'm sure you'll cut most of that out. Mary Arcuri lived about a mile, just under a mile away from the Martinique apartments.
Okay.
I mean, you could have easily walked it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It's technically in a different neighborhood. It's technically in Garfield, but really not far. So let me make that smaller. But that is for your reference, Hannah.
Okay.
So again, these photos are Mary and her family, her husband, her children. This is her. She was 36 years old when she disappeared. Mary Arcuri was having some marriage problems with her husband. I think his name, I want to say his name was Frank, but you know that I just say Frank all the time for some reason.
Yeah, Frank is your go-to, I don't actually know his name word.
I know. I think that it actually is, though. Hold on. It was not Frank. Who
Raise your hand if you're surprised.
His name's Albert.
Oh, totally different.
Totally different. Okay. So Albert and Mary supposedly were having some minor marital issues. And that kind of claim was founded by the fact that Albert told family that she left. He told them that she packed up her clothes and her personal items and left him.
Okay.
So there were rumors that she was having an affair. The story seemed plausible to people who knew her, and she was never reported as having gone missing, like, ever.
Okay.
They just believed that
she just left.
Yeah, that she left. So that happened in 1964. I'm gonna keep going in chronological order.
Okay.
Even though we're gonna bounce back and forth a little bit.
All right.
So, if we go to our next slide, this is the Martinique apartments today. So they're now called the Boulevard Apartments.
Okay.
You can see, did I not include that one picture? Hold on. It looks like I didn't. Let me pull it from my other. Oh, that was such a good picture. I had a picture that showed, like, you see that little tunnel there?
Yeah.
It showed, like, a view straight into the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got it from Google Maps. Let me do that again. Okay, go ahead to your next slide, too. You can just kind of flip back and forth as you need. So there's, like, a little bit of a continuity error in the photo because of Google Maps. You can see where stuff's, like, doubled up.
Yeah.
On either side of the archway. That's just because of the Google Maps car. But I like this because it shows you, like, that little tunnel that like went under the apartment building. It also kind of gives you a better idea of how the apartment building's not really part of the pizza shop and restaurant.
Yeah. I still wonder, though, if they would have referred to that as the restaurant.
It's possible, but the information that I saw, so if you go back to the last slide where it's like the wider view.
Yeah.
So you can see the entrance to the apartments on the far left. That like door with the glass block. That's the entrance to the apartments. And then the Vicelli's Pizza was supposedly always a pizza shop.
Okay.
And then on the other side of the archway, there's a bar there now, and that was always a bar. It wasn't a restaurant. So that's what leads me to believe that there was like another restaurant.
You know what? So we said that we're going to go to this place next weekend.
Yeah.
And do a filming.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps your resident extrovert will have to ask some questions.
That's all right.
To some people and see what I can suss out.
Speaking of my resident extrovert, go to your next slide.
Okay.
So this is just a close-up of the entrance, and you can see the window. That top left-hand window was the apartment that Mary Regan was killed in. Yes. These photos are currently available online because they still rent apartments.
Well, yeah, they're still an apartment.
So,
complex.
Miss Resident Extrovert,
I will get a hold of the building manager.
I want to tour it.
Yeah, I can absolutely get a hold of the building manager.
I want to pretend that we're going to rent an apartment, looking at renting an apartment. And I want to
we don't even have to do that. Like, I'm sure if I told them that we're from a, like, publication.
That's true. I want to see it.
We are a publication. We're doing a story on the Martinique, and we have some questions about the history of the place. We wondered if we could look at it. Yeah, I'll send an email, I'll make a phone call.
Do it.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to include that because it just, for me, like, it's interesting to me. I'm sure that's not everybody's jam, but
it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I want to tour it. I'm down.
Here's the curious thing. Obviously, the building still exists. It's very clearly the same exact building.
Yeah.
A lot of articles talk as if the building was razed. Like, I don't know why. Like, the verbiage that they use is like, oh, the Martinique is no longer there, or like the building is gone. And it's like, no, it's still apartments. It's just under different management, the different name.
Yeah. I have a phone number.
Mm-hmm.
I can call.
Okay.
At some point.
Yeah, no rush. This. No rush.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally. I'm not afraid.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's go back to 1991 now.
Okay.
In 1991, a man came forward to the police and stated that in 1962, which is the year that Marianne went missing.
Yes.
He came forward and he claimed that he witnessed a Presbyterian minister molesting and murdering a young girl.
Oh, my.
Marianne was the only girl young girl who fit the age of what he claimed he saw. So she was the only one who went missing at that time. So the police were like, yeah, we're going to look into this, even though he didn't come forward with it until 1991, there were no other reports that of any other girls.
Okay.
So the police looked into it. At this point, the minister in question was no longer in Pittsburgh. I believe he was in Oregon. If you go to your next slide, there's a couple articles here. They questioned him. They questioned the church. They didn't find any evidence. He didn't confess to anything. He did, however, retire at this time. Okay. But there was never anything to say definitively that he did do this. Of note, the man who came forward with this information also stated that this minister had molested him as a child.
Okay.
So I don't know how much of it is true. This is one of those 3 sides to every stories kind of thing.
Yeah.
To every story, singular story kind of things. I don't want to victim blame. I don't want to say that I don't believe anybody who is claiming to be a victim. But it's a tricky thing.
Yeah, and obviously the only evidence we have is this guy's word.
Right. Yeah, there's no hard evidence here.
Yeah.
And there's no body. So the man claimed that the body was buried, that he saw him burying the body or whatever, and they did dig up the place that they thought, or that this guy said. And they didn't find anything. Who knows what that means or doesn't mean. It was 30 years later almost. So it's just a tricky situation. But that came out in 1991. So it was almost a full 30 years later, and they, maybe have a new lead, but it didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
The minister claimed his innocence the whole time. And like I said, he was never able to be definitively linked to Marianne Verdecchia.
Yeah.
They just dropped it, It was just a questioning. It wasn't, there was no charges.
I'm sure they jumped onto it because it was their first real lead in 30 years.
Oh, yeah. And they were being thorough. That's one thing that we can say for sure about this particular case is that the police followed every single lead that they got.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately can't be said about our last case that we covered.
No.
But in this case, it was very, very, very thorough. And that's due in part to the fact that Teresa Rocco was leading it. She is a seriously strong woman. She does not mess around.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that happened in 1991. Nothing came of it, but of course it was printed all over the place. So I've included some articles about that here.
Okay.
Then we're going to fast forward again to 2018.
Okay.
Go ahead to your next slide. In 2018, on Black Street in Garfield, so if you're looking at the bottom picture, it's this house with the red dumpster in front of it.
Okay. And Black Street is where the last victim that we talked about,
Mary Arcure. Arcuri. Yeah.
Lived, right?
Right. So this is the house that they lived in.
Okay.
So they're doing renovation on the house. The owner who owned it at this time had purchased it 2 months before this that I'm going to tell you about happened. And they're renovating it in order to turn it into a rental.
Okay.
So they had to do a lot of repairs. You can tell, like, it's an old house and it definitely needed some love.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the repairs was to dig up a deck in the backyard. So it was, I saw one article that said it was a concrete slab, and I found other articles that said that it was like a wood deck.
It looks like a concrete slab from
Yeah.
the photos.
Yeah, I think it was a concrete slab, but like I said, you just got some different information coming from other places. But based on the rubble back there, I think it was a concrete slab. So they tore up the slab and they found human remains.
Cool.
So if you remember, though, everybody believed that Mary Arcuri just left.
Yeah.
So they found these remains. They knew that it was a woman, about 30-ish years old.
Mm-hmm.
So they all thought, the police, the media, everybody thought that the remains that they found were the remains of Marcella Krulz, the diabetic.
What?
Yeah.
So they didn't even think it was Mary Arcturi?
No, she was, like I said, she was never reported missing. Her family and friends believed that she up and left.
Okay. So
Yeah.
they think it was the diabetic secretary.
Yeah. Yep. So, of course, they're doing forensics. Like I said, this is 2018, so this is very recent.
Yeah.
They're doing their forensics, and they rule out that it was Marcella Krulz. So, of course, this hit the news in 2018 because everybody is thinking, oh my God, a cold case from 1959 is going to be solved.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't.
But instead, it's a case that they didn't even know was a case.
Exactly. So they rule out that it's not, in fact, Marcella Krulz. And then the question is, well, who the heck do these bones belong to? Basically, and here's the interesting things, or the interesting thing. So Teresa Rocco knew the Arcuries. Like, they were just, like, family friends.
Okay.
Like, acquaintances. So
Okay.
she was privy in the 60s to the information that Mary up and left. And even Teresa Rocco said that it seemed plausible.
Yeah.
So that's
it
what
feels
I'm
plausible
saying.
to me.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. She was in the police force at this point, and the fact that she just up and left did not set off any red flags to anybody.
That's weird.
She did say that this is Teresa Rocco still. She did say that she didn't think that Albert could ever hurt his wife, but she always wondered why Mary never contacted her children or any other family members after she left.
Yeah.
Then Also relevant, only a year after, like approximately a year after her disappearance, Albert Arcuri died in a car accident after supposedly intentionally driving at a high speed into a brick wall at the former Don Allen Chevrolet dealership on Baum Boulevard.
So, not an accident.
No, police believe it to be a suicide attempt.
A successful one.
Yep. About a year after his wife's disappearance.
And why?
I guess nobody really cared.
Yeah, geez.
So then in 2018, detectives show up at Teresa Rocco's door with questions about a skeleton because they knew they knew approximately when the skeleton would have dated to. And they knew that Teresa Rocco was the person in charge of missing women at that time. Ooh, I just punched my mic stand. So they, are asking her questions basically about who went missing at this time, blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after Albert Arcuri died, the house went up for sheriff's sale in 1966. And so somebody else bought it, can you even imagine living in that house for 40 years and then finding out there was a skeleton under your patio the whole time?
I just assume there's a skeleton under all things. Like, I don't know. I just always assume there's a skeleton.
Yeah. So,
but
I don't know.
I'm not normal.
You're not normal, but that's okay. But yeah, the house had been bought and sold like a few times since the Arcuris owned it. And then in 2018, while renovating, they break up the slab. They find these bones. They determine that it is not Marcella. They give, let me see here. So Detective Rocco, or Chief Rocco, Teresa, she gave the detectives who were investigating the skeleton Marcella's dental records.
Okay.
And that's what told them that it was not, in fact, Marcella.
Did they test it against... why can't I think of what her name is? It's like I can't commit her name to memory. Albert's wife.
Mary.
Did they test it against her kids' DNA?
They eventually, let me see how they determined. So Teresa said that when she found out that it was the Arcuris' house, her first thought that came to her mind was, it's Mary. But she didn't say that because, because
everybody thought she had just left, which is a totally normal thing to do.
Right. But because Teresa knew the family, that was her thought, like immediately. But, the police are thinking, well, we don't even know who Mary is. Like, she is not a missing person. They did confirm that it was Mary Arcuri based on DNA testing.
Who could have thought?
Yeah. So, let's recap. 1958, Mary Regan murdered. 1959, Marcella Krulz missing. 1962, Marianne Verdecchia missing. 1963, murder man murdering. Let's see. 1964, Mary R. Curie missing.
And eventually murdered.
So this all happened within 1 mile, within 5 years, and most of them at the Martinique.
So are you positing a theory that it was the murder man, or are you...
No.
Do you just not... what's going on at this apartment building?
So they referred to it as the cursed apartments sometimes.
Okay.
Here's some, hippy-dippy crap. I think that either there was somebody else living in... Now, of course, we know Mary R. Curie... Probably her husband killed her, but the only reason I even include Mary R. Curie in all of this is because when her skeleton was found, they thought it could have been Marcella.
Yeah.
But other than that, she's not related to the Martinique, really. But hippy-dippy woo-woo crap, I feel like there very possibly could have been either a serial kidnapper killer who lived in the Martinique or worked in the Martinique, or there could have been a negative energy in the Martinique.
So you have a supernatural theory and you have a serial killer theory.
Right.
One being all of these are connected except for Mary R. Curie, and one being none of them are connected. They're just connected by there's something bad in the Martinique.
Right. Exactly. Because really, we've got 3 very different MOs. We've got a woman who was murdered and her body left in her apartment. We've got a woman who goes missing who's 30 years old, and then a child who's only 10 years old going missing. Now, it's not impossible, but it's not common that a serial killer abducts people from such a wide age range.
However, the only real outlier is Mary Ann.
Kind of. Yeah.
Because the other ones were within a 15-year, 30s.
Within a 10-year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could have been that Mary Regan got too much press. I left the body and it got too much press. I'm going to change.
That's how I looked at it, was that he learned.
Right. So, I don't know. I mean, obviously, these are all cold cases. Everything, the 3 people who were killed and murdered or missing in the Martinique are cold cases. Mm-hmm. So, it's hard to say. I do find it extremely interesting, like I said, that Teresa Rocco thinks she knows who did it, but obviously that information's not public. And I have to wonder if that information could be linked to all of the cases. But if it was concrete, I'm sure that it would be public.
Yeah. Which is why I will absolutely call the Boulevard apartment building and see if we can get in and do a tour / ask some questions. Just about where was this? Clearing things up, where was the restaurant? What was all of that about?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to call Teresa Rocco because I don't think she has anything to tell us.
No, I don't. I think that if she could say anything, it would be out there already.
Exactly.
She knows the law, and yeah, exactly. But
we're not doing anything that would jeopardize an investigation going to the apartment building.
No. And frankly, I don't know how much of what we would learn we would even include in the podcast.
Well, no, it'd just be a supplement. We don't do reading and recommended for monthly mystery. Mm-hmm. What would you like to wrap this up with then?
How about, do you have a favorite Pittsburgh neighborhood?
Yes.
Let's do that.
I'm personally partial to Lawrenceville.
Obviously.
Just because I'm not from Pittsburgh and it feels like home to me.
Aww.
Like it is your neighborhood. It is where I feel like, yes, we're home. It is becoming a little like gentrified.
It is. It's been.
And like a little hipstery.
Mm-hmm. It just depends on what part you're in.
Exactly. But that's also not like a bad thing because in general, because like there's a really delicious vegan like little cafe in Lawrenceville. I'm not vegan, but I like vegan restaurants because I don't do dairy and I have like a lot of stomach upset and stuff with a lot of foods. So vegan restaurants usually are a good bet for me that I'll have something I can eat that won't upset my stomach.
Right.
Let me actually plug them because I don't remember what they're called. They are called the B52 Cafe.
Cute.
On Butler Street. They are delicious. They have buckwheat pancakes that you can put bananas in them. And they are so good. They're even good like reheated.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Lawrenceville is like number 1. And then I'd say number 2 is probably, would it be Oakland is where Phipps is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Phipps is in Oakland? There's my second one.
Ours are the same.
I just love Phipps. I just love Phipps.
That's a good reason. So obviously Lawrenceville, because it's where I'm from. It's where like I've lived my whole life. Like you said, it's home. And I like its location because it is so close to downtown, but you don't really get like all of the negatives of living in a downtown area.
Yeah.
Plus, it's right along the highway. Like, you just hop on 28 and you can go, like, anywhere. Exactly. Which is so nice. And then Oakland, which is where I went to high school. And it's like a second home pretty much. And there's so much to do in Oakland. You know, one of my first jobs was in Oakland. And obviously Phipps and the park right across from Phipps, which is where Scott and I got engaged. And you know, there are lots of good memories in Oakland.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that it's the same for both of us.
Yeah, we love Pittsburgh.
We do. I do.
Clearly.
I never saw myself leaving Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes the universe just has other plans, but I'm glad that I still live close enough to it that it's not an inconvenience to go home.
And we go there fairly often to see Brittany and Susan. So.
Of course.
And your family, obviously.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Where can the people find us?
We are Briefcase Crimes across all platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. You can listen to full episodes anywhere that you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If you would like to support us monetarily, you can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/briefcase crimes, or you can purchase any of our book recommendations on bookshop.org. They support local bookstores by donating 75% of profits, and they support us through our affiliate link by giving us 10% of the profits as well. That link, as well as all of the others, are in our link tree, which is in our bio and all of our descriptions of all of our social media. And I will be adding the book. I don't know how much I talked about it. Teresa Rocco has a book, and I do think it's in our reading and recommending list, but I will go ahead and add that to the bookshop list of books about our cases as well, so that you can find that. And that is, let me look up the title of that really quick. It is called Teresa Rocco, Pittsburgh's first female assistant police chief. And it's kind of memoir style. So that will also be on our bookshop.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My headphones just died.
That's okay.
Perfect timing. Would you like to wrap this up?
Yeah. Thank you all so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.